Hey Xavier, how's it going, my friend?
It's going well, man. It's good to be with you, Earl. Good.
Likewise, and it's great that we've both known each other for a number of years. I had the honor of attending your wedding with Annie and being your best man, and just knowing that our kids have attended Trinity for so long as well.
I know it's been a while. I think you and I actually both sort of were coming to Trinity at about the same time where you were coming back. And I don't know if you can believe this, but it's been 9 years. So that was back 2012. My daughter Evan wasn't even in school at that time. Now she's going to high school. So we've been together for a while, walking this road of life.
Absolutely, and it's been great walking life with you, my friend. Well, welcome, Trinity family. My name is Earl Carr, and I have been a member at Trinity Baptist Church in the Upper East Side for the past almost 9 years. I grew up at Trinity. Came. My mom brought me at the age of 3, and so today I have the privilege of introducing you to a very good friend and fellow Trinity member, Xavier. Hey, Xavier, and chat a little bit about how you have kind of walked life this past year. Last time we talked, you shared with me how you and your family found yourselves in a really unique position during this time. In fact, you shared how you found yourselves unexpectedly thriving. Tell us a bit more about that, Xavier.
What happened was my wife is a doctor, and I'm working in insurance, and both of those things became even more important during the pandemic for the people that they serve. Uh, and so I actually had earned more money last year than I had at any other time in my life. And of course, my wife, didn't lose her job. She became more essential. My daughters, they actually had been asking for a little while to be homeschooled. So it was actually a kind of an answer to prayer for them. My mother, my brother, and we all had COVID, but nobody was hospitalized. Nobody died. And this, so there was this one moment where I thought, I can't believe this is happening. The CEO of my company, which is it's a publicly traded company, came out publicly and said that nobody in the company was going to lose their job during the thick of the pandemic. And so it was almost bizarre to be sort of finding abundance and security, and the contrast was quite a bit of a shock.
So, Xavier, let's build on that theme a little bit more. What was going through your mind as you found yourself in this position of abundance? Yet hearing in the news, and I'm sure through friends and family, that others, were struggling greatly. How do you deal with those two contrasting issues?
I love the proverbs. There's this proverb that I've read several times. Every 11th of the month, because there are 30 proverbs, I read them. I read them through, and there's this one where it says, "The people, they will curse the hoarder of grain, but blessing will come to the one who sells." So that's, in a time of need, you can keep it, and the value will go up, because people need it. But that doesn't mean you're doing the right thing. So
Mm,
we ask God, how can we be generous? How can we use what you've given us?
that's powerful, Xavier. How did God respond to that prayer?
Well, eh, you know, it was subtle to begin with, but it became like very, very clear as things continued. It was the first thing was, how do we as a family have a biblical framework for how we use our money as a whole, right? So how do we as a household, manage our money? What are the things that are important to us, and what are the values that we have, and what are the values that we should have, according to God's instructions. So we came up with a biblical framework for how we use our money, as a family, as a household. And then branching off from that, we had taken a look at, like, what were the giving instructions, like in the Old Testament and the New Testament. Like, when people were being charitable, what did they do? And we saw these three themes really coming out, and it was for the poor, for the marginalized, and for the isolated. And so we gave along with those three themes, and Sometimes it was directly to people who were in need, like for instance, like a friend who had lost a job or needed help with rent or food or something like that. And then also looking at organizations that are serving in these areas. So a few that we gave to last year were the Bowery Mission and the Father's Heart, which serves the homeless, a group called Restore, which helps victims of human trafficking, and Young Life, which ministers to youth and helps to bring them into relationship and offer them mentorship. So we also wanted the church to be able to be generous in this time. So we gave directly to the Benevolence Fund more than we typically give, so that the church would have the opportunity to meet the needs of the people in the church that we weren't aware of, or we didn't know about.
Oh, that's powerful. Did you feel that that was the full answer to that prayer, or did it go anywhere else from there?
Early on in the pandemic, there were like sirens in our neighborhood going off every day. Several of the people in our building were taken to the hospital by ambulance, and so I saw all these things happening, and I couldn't sit by, I couldn't stand by and do nothing. And my wife is a doctor, so every day she would just get up, get dressed, and go to work. And she used, they had protective equipment and everything like that, but I couldn't see myself sitting at home, and I felt God really wanted me to do something. And so I started looking for ways that I could help, and I even went so far as to start researching, like, what would it take to become a paramedic and to really be sort of on the front lines helping people, but ended up not going that way.
And kind of what was the culmination of all of this? Where did you eventually, end up, serving and ultimately doing?
So in that process, just looking for anything I could do, one of the things that I returned to was a health clinic that had caught my attention. It's called the New Life Community Health Center, and it is a part of the ministry through the New Life Fellowship in Elmhurst, Queens. And so they were actually still open. And at this clinic, they provide food and showers for the homeless. They provide medical care for the uninsured and for immigrants. And it was just a phone call and an email and asking them if they needed help, and they responded to me that they did.
Were you able to start serving right away?
No, it took a while, actually, and I think that was certainly intentional by God's design. And so it took about 6 months, and it was a process. I had to actually get several rounds of immunizations that either needed to be updated or that I hadn't had before. I had to go through background checks, obtain references. And so it ended up, being about 6 months. And also during that time, I was studying Spanish, which ended up becoming very, very helpful when I did start.
Wow. So, I mean, you went from immunizations to learning Spanish. And so you started serving, and then what happened after that?
Well, I started serving 2 Saturdays every month by their request, and I'm really grateful because I was going to serve every Saturday, every Tuesday, and they started to share with me how they've been able to serve for so long, which is to have a focus on sustainable ministry. So I started serving twice every month on Saturday, and I would be there, and there would be about 20-30 people that would come to shower and pick up food on those days, and a number of patients as well. And so every day the shower and the bathrooms and the exam rooms would need to be cleaned after each use. There would be a lot of donations to sort through and distribute, such as personal protective equipment, hygiene supplies, clothes, and all of that would need to be moved into storage and then brought out. And also patients would sometimes need translation. So I would be there, and I would be able to help with that. Or also, if they were meeting with a social worker, they have a social worker on site. Sometimes they would need translation help with those things as well. And then other little things like administrative things. They have to call back people to set up new appointments, or let them know about test results, with the doctors there, of course, and things like that. And then at the end of the day, you have to clean everything up and disinfect everything. And then, and so like really, it was, I said, okay, whatever you need me for, I'm here to do. And so they essentially gave me opportunities to do just about everything, and fill in the gaps wherever they were.
Wow, incredible. I mean, clearly, the United States, the global community, but New York City in particular has gone through a lot. Was serving kind of how you imagined it to be, or were there any surprises along the way?
So I'd been a part of doing things like this in the past. All of the things that I was doing, I had done in some capacity before, but not all at one place, all at one time. And what I discovered, one of the surprises, was that I wasn't who I thought I would be in the midst of the circumstance, even though the circumstances were somewhat anticipated. And I can give you an example on that. In that there was one time where I was cleaning the bathrooms in between showers for our guests, and came to the shower, and there was feces on the shower floor. And in that moment, I did all kinds of mental gymnastics. I thought, maybe the person who would just use it should clean it. Maybe the next person should just figure it out. Or is there anyone who gets paid to be here that maybe I can delegate this to? Right. So I was thinking of all these scenarios, and I realized, no, I had volunteered for this. This was my job, and it wasn't for me to give to anybody else. But more than that, the verse in Matthew 25, where Jesus says, whatever you have done for the least of these, you have done for me. And I realized, okay, well, if God is who I say he is to me, then I'm serving him, and he's a king. And so how should I clean this shower if the next person who's about to use it is a king, or the person who just used it, is a king? And I went from saying I'm doing good work, like I'm serving God, to realizing, no, what I'm doing is I'm recognizing the immeasurable worth of God and the people around me. And so it wasn't even a job at that point, right? It was a joy, strangely. But again, it was a shift in my perspective.
That's a great encouragement, and appreciate you helping us walk through kind of areas of doubt or hesitation or frustration. That was great. Kind of where are you now in your serving journey?
There's a goal I'm trying to get to, but it's a goal a long way off, right? It's when it talks about in Hebrews 12 that you run the race with perseverance, right? And part of that verse is also that you're surrounded by this great cloud of witnesses. And so I find that serving is great, but eventually, if you don't have the church around you, as you're serving, then chances are you're not going to be able to run that race with perseverance, because there were many times where, again, I wanted to just not clean the shower one more time, just call in and say, you know what, maybe I'm not feeling good today, or didn't want to take another, pay for another Spanish lesson or do my Spanish homework, because it's weird, when you're trying to speak, but you sound stupid. So but I would see the people around me, high school volunteers there at the clinic, the doctors who had already worked 5 days, now working on Saturday, and other people who were serving. And I realized, they were running on something too. I was a part of something bigger, and that was the Spirit of God working in all of us for this time and for this moment. So for me, it's been realizing also the need to connect and serve within the church as well.
Oh, this is great. Xavier, for people like myself and others who are listening to this and might be feeling like a little overwhelmed, like how are you able to find the balance in doing all of this?
I wish I could take credit for a great deal of contemplation and and discipline for having arrived here, but I have to give God credit for that as well, because it was I guess we say it's a pruning process, right, or a refining process. And there were several moments throughout the year that had made it possible for me to just let go of a lot of things I used to hold on very tightly to, especially things that ended up being demands on time. So I'll give an example. Like during the year that we had 3 quarantine periods. Once when I was sick, once when my wife was working in the COVID unit and we had to be quarantined, and then also once my children had been exposed. So we, and over that time, just a lot of things got taken away. Like, I wasn't actually physically able to help with things like make meals or clean the house or help with homework, and ended up just realizing, okay, a lot of these things don't matter as much as I thought they did. So I ended up letting go of all social media. I ended up, I wasn't able to exercise while I was while I had the virus myself. So my workouts went from, like 5 or 6 hours a week to 0. And then now I'm back up to maybe like 20 or 30 minutes a day. But so all of that time, all of those extras, God had kind of refined. And I would say that if you had asked me before that happened, am I doing anything unnecessary? I would have said no. I probably would have said, no, I'm doing everything I need to do, and everything is essential. So I would welcome anyone to just take a look and have some grace and patience with themselves, and ask, am I really stretching myself? Like, be kind to yourself, in the way that God is kind to us. I think He really gently moved me in this direction, and I think you can ask God to gently move you as well.
I think it's great that you took accepted the challenge to learn a foreign language like Spanish. How's your Spanish now?
So I would say, if I were speaking in Spanish, mi español no es avanzado ahora, pero estoy aprendiendo, sí. Y mi primera problema es conversaciones pequeñas. So, small talk is very, very hard for me. Si me preguntas, ¿cómo fue su fin de semana? No tengo nada. So if you ask me what I did last weekend, I have nothing to say. But the medical terminology and other things like that, asking people, are you experiencing symptoms de COVID-19? Like, that part is a little bit easier.
Great, thanks. As we kind of come to a close and wrap this up, what would you say, was the beginning of the snowball effect that kind of got you started down this journey? And what do you want to impart and share for people who may be kind of, struggling on the fence, not really knowing if they should or not?
While it might have seemed like I might have given a lot this year, or we might have given a lot this year, because it's a sacrifice for my family as well for me to be there on Saturdays. If I hadn't done that, I wouldn't have had a health clinic ID, and I wouldn't have been eligible to get a vaccination as early as I was. And so, having given up, my life in these areas, it has actually probably saved my life, literally. And so I would welcome anyone who is thinking about taking that first step, is that all you have to do is really take the first step. And I would say, if you look back, if anybody looks back, I know when I look back, I realized I had been receiving, for about 38 years. Like, most of my life, I was the one who really needed help. There was a time where, I remember my family couldn't afford to fix our car, and it went on, and it was a problem for a long time. And the church just showed up one day with a car. I personally wasn't able to afford my rent at one point, and Trinity, through the benevolence ministry, actually helped me pay the rent. And so again, I look back and I see like 38 years of having received, and this is the first time in my life that I've actually been able to really, really sort of live giving, first. And so I would, it was stored up, and I think God has stored up things for all of us, whether you think it's small or not, but God has stored up something that you can give, and I would encourage you to give it. I mean, my hope is, that 38 years was, the preparation for the next 38 years of giving. All right, and then at 76, maybe I can retire. I don't know, but Again, God is not a God who essentially like thrusts you into something you're not prepared for, and the scripture tells us that, right? That He doesn't give you anything that you can't handle, or that anything that He's asked you to do, He's also empowered you to do. And so the will and the ability to give, to try for a shift, comes from the power of His Spirit, and not even from you. And so you can trust in that, and take a small first step.
Well, thank you so much. It was a great reminder that to whom much is given, much is required. And so I hope we all take that with us. Have a blessed day. Thanks, everyone.